Hello everyone, welcome back. We're almost done with our season preview series. In today's video, we're looking at the last two Central Division teams, the Stars and the Nashville Predators. How did they do last year? How did they do in the offseason? How are they looking, shaping up going into the 25-26 season? We'll touch on all of that in this video here, coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we begin this video, do not forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for more videos coming out in the very near future. So as per usual in today's video, another season preview series video. So today we're looking at the Predators and the Stars as per usual. We'll look at last year's stats, their offseason additions and subtractions, their big trades, their top 3 picks in the 2025 draft, my offseason checklist from my offseason preview video, see what they accomplished, see what they didn't, and then we'll also look at my projected lineup for the team, my projected point total for a team, both for 25-26 season, and my off-season grades. So we're going to start with the Nashville Predators. Last year they had an off-season to remember, a really great off-season, sent a couple of really big free agents. A lot of people, including myself, thought they were going to be a playoff-bound team. That was far from the case. Had a horrible start to the season, never recovered, finished the year with a record of 30, 44, and 8 for a mere 68 points. That was 7th in the Central, 14th in the Western Conference, and 30th in the entire NHL. They were a bottom 3 team this year at the NHL level, and a lot of people thought that they were going to be a playoff-bound team. So it was an atrocious season this past year from the Nashville Predators. They had 212 goals for, 274 goals against. They were a minus 62. Like that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Goal scoring wise, they were amongst one of the worst in the entire NHL, and did not have overly good stuff going for them defensive wise either. So just some bad stuff all around there from Nashville. I mean, minus 62 is atrocious. Goal and point scoring leaders for the team in the regular season. Forwards regular team with 76 points, followed by Marchment, who had 56, and Stamkos and O'Reilly, who both had 53. And then Forsberg led a team with 31 goals, followed by Stamkos with 27, and O'Reilly and Marchment, who both had 21. So you can see they were one of the lowest teams in the goal scoring department. Forsberg was the only guy who had 30 plus goals or 60 plus points, and even some of their bigger offseason additions like Marchment, like Stamkos, weren't even able to hit the 60-point plateau or the 30-goal mark. So very interesting note there, but that's a huge reason as to why this Preds team missed the playoffs. And of course they missed the playoffs, so there's no playoff stats to go off of. So that's it for the Nashville Predators. Next, going over to their offseason additions and subtractions. When I look at their additions and subtractions, there's not a long list here of additions, long list of subtractions though. They had Erik Haula in their trade from New Jersey, Nick Perbix in free agency from Tampa, Nick Hague in their trade from Vegas, and the Golden Knights 2027 third-round pick. Will they lose Jacob Vrana overseas? Yes, he loaned into UFA status. Colin Sissons to Vegas in a trade. Andre Pavel overseas. Kiefer Bellows to UFA status. We're reading a single to UFA status. Jeremy Lauzon to Vegas in a trade. Delgazio to Montreal in free agency. Freeman overseas. Hanzel in their trade to New Jersey. And a 2025 fourth rounder their own. So very interesting note there. Like if you look at this team, like defensive wise, they add Nick Hague, they add Perbix. I like these two additions. The Hague contract's a little bit out there, but I think Perbix can be a really solid top 4 right shot defenseman. Hague can be a solid second, third pair left shot defenseman. So like those are some really good additions. They lose Lauzon, Delgazio, Freeman, and Hanzel. Hanzel was a prospect, so he hadn't play at the NHL level. Freeman was an in-season acquisition, and he was mostly an NHL level guy as well. Delgazio got some opportunities at the NHL level last year. Lauzon was a solid third pair defenseman, so I think they definitely did improve. Lose a little bit of depth, but they definitely improved defensively with the additions of Hague and Perbix. Offensively though, did lose a lot of depth, didn't really replace it. They lost solid fourth line center Sissons. Also Ylonen, who was a decent call-up option. Vrana, who was acquired in season, was a decent bottom 6 guy. They lose Kiefer Bellows, Weird and Asenko, also in-season acquisitions. So all in all, they definitely did lose some depth, but they're not going to be as deep of a team forward group-wise as they were last year. But I do think they didn't do a whole bunch, because basically for regulars, it was just they lose Sissons, they add Haula, which is a win in of itself. So all in all, not bad off-season there from the Preds. Definitely lose a lot of depth, but I definitely do like the additions that they made. This Devils team made 2 trades this season. They acquired Nick Hague in a 2027 third rounder from Vegas in exchange for Sissons and Lauzon in a trade with the Golden Knights. And then they acquired Erik Haula from New Jersey in exchange for Jeremy Hanzel and a 2025 fourth rounder that went to the New Jersey Devils. So two very interesting trades there from the Nashville Predators. If you go over to their top 3 draft picks in the 2025 draft, they had 3 first rounders as their first 3 picks. So they had a lot of draft capital, 3 first round picks. Their first one was the first round, 5th overall. They took center prospect Brady Martin. Their second pick was in the first round as well, 21st overall, took left-out defenseman Reed. And then their third pick was in the first round as well, 26th overall, and they took right winger Riker Lee. So some very interesting pickups here. Like they took a center, a winger, and a defenseman in the first round of the draft. So very good stuff there. Like I think Martin long-term has the potential to be a solid second first-line center for the Nashville Predators. Reed I think eventually could be a solid top 4 defenseman, maybe top pair defenseman, and Lee I think eventually could be a really solid top 6 winger. So some really solid pickups here from the Preds. They were gifted enough to have 3 first-round picks this past offseason, and they used them all pretty well. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to 5 things they said this team should look at in the offseason in my offseason preview video to improve and get better for this upcoming season. So the first thing they said this team should do was to move one of their first-round picks for a roster upgrade. They didn't do that. They kept all 3 of their first-round picks. I thought because of the amount of first-round draft capital they had, they could potentially move one of them, maybe 2 of them, and try and get some sort of immediate NHL help. They didn't do that, so that's an X on my checklist because that was never accomplished. The second thing they said this team should do was to consider moving some of their veterans, including Stamkos, Marchment, Lauzon, Sissons, and Bunting. That's what I mentioned in the offseason preview video. And to some extent, they did that. They moved Sissons and Lauzon to Vegas for Nick Hague. They still have Stamkos, they still have Marchment, they still have Bunting. So they did it to some extent. We'll let this move off a couple more veterans, but at least a couple of them who aren't doing familiar with their deal. It's not overly bad, so I'm going to give them a check mark on that. The third thing I said this team should do was to give some of the younger guys some more opportunities, such as guys like Matthew Wood, Joakim Kamel, Reed Schaefer, Zachary Leroux, and Fedor Svechkov, amongst others. I definitely think there's going to be a handful of younger players on the Preds roster this upcoming season, especially after the loss of their depth. So I think like Svechkov, Leroux, and maybe to some extent Kamel, maybe Wood, as well as a defenseman like a guy like Molendijk, I think could all challenge for roster spots this upcoming season. So I think to some extent they definitely can play at that. The fourth thing I said this team should do was to add a top 4 defenseman. They did that. Whether you view Perbix or Hague as a top 4 defenseman, at least one of those 2 are top 4 defensemen, if not both of them. So I feel like they definitely did improve their blue line by adding a top 4 defenseman. I think Perbix at this point in time maybe a little more of a top 4 defenseman than Hague, but still both guys are really solid guys who I think have the potential to be solid top 4 defensemen. So that's another check off my checklist. And the fifth thing I said this team should do was to add 1 to 2 top 9 forwards, and they didn't do that. Like they did add Holla, who I think can be a solid top 9 forward, but he's more of a bottom 6 guy, and that's the only forward addition they made. So I was hoping they were able to make some top 9 additions. They didn't make a whole bunch, and Holla was the only one, so I'm going to give them an X on the checklist. So very interesting out there, but they definitely completed a couple of things. However, they didn't move any of their first round draft capital for an immediate roster upgrade. So very interesting out there. Next, going over to my projected lineup for the Nashville Predators for 25-26 season. So at this current point in time, my projected lineup is as follows. Forsberg, O'Reilly, Kennel make up the top unit, followed by Marchment, Stamkos, Evangelista on line 2, LaRue, Holla, Bunting on line 3, and Smith, Svechkov, and Wood on line 4. Josi and Perbix would be pair 1, Shea and Molendijk would be pair 2, Hague and Baron would be pair 3, Saros the starter, and Union the backup, and McCarron, England, and Blankenberg the 3 spares. It'll be a decent lineup. Like the defense, of course, not overly bad. It's not one of the best in the NHL, but it's probably around in the middle. They definitely have a young and inexperienced forward group, so I would be concerned about them scoring goals. Goaltending wise, they have Saros and Union. That's a pretty solid tandem. So all in all, not a bad roster there for the Nashville Predators. Next, going over to my projected lineup for the Nashville Predators for 25-26 season. So at this current point in time, I definitely feel they're going to take a step forward. Now, how much of a step forward is to be debated, but I think they're going to have a step forward where they get very close to the 500 mark, just a little bit below it, and definitely nowhere close to a playoff spot. I have them finishing with a record of 36, 39, and 7 for 79 points, 13th in the Western Conference. So I have them missing the playoffs by I think like 14, 15 points. It's nowhere near the almost 30 points they were missing the playoffs by last year, but I definitely don't think they made enough changes this offseason to be a playoff team. I think there's still a whole bunch of teams in the Western Conference, especially in the Central Division, that are better than the Nashville Predators at this current point in time. So even though I do like the offseason moves that they made, I just at this current point in time cannot say that this team got a whole bunch better. So that's why I'm going to put them as 13th in the Western Conference with 79 points. And lastly, going over to my offseason grade. So if you look at what they did this offseason, Definitely lost a lot of depth. I would like to see him replace a little bit of that depth, but defensively got a little bit better. Offensively, probably around the same. So I'm going to give them a B- rating. I don't think they had a bad offseason by any means, had they been able to replace some of the depth that they lost on the defensive end and on the forward group, especially on the forward group. I definitely think that I could have put them as like an A-level rating, but I think a B- rating for the sort of offseason that they had sort of warranted. So that's my opinion on the Nashville Predators. Next, going over to the Dallas Stars. So going over to the Dallas Stars, last year was a pretty solid season from Dallas. They finished with a record of 50, 26, and 6 for 106 points, second in the Central, third in the West, fifth in the entire NHL. So they were like a top 5 team in the NHL this past year. Like, they were amazing. They were able to just edge out Colorado for the second spot in the Central Division. Finished quite a bit behind Winnipeg, but still, they were a great team last year. Finished with 275 goals for and 222 goals against. So they were a plus 53 rated team. Once again, not as high as some of the other teams we've seen, but plus 53 is nothing to scoff at. Like, that was a pretty gosh dang good plus minus for the Dallas Stars. So very interesting note there. And the regular season point goal scoring leaders, Duchesne led the team with 82 points, followed by Robertson, who had 80, and Johnson, who had 71. And then Robertson led the team with 35 goals, followed by Johnson, who had 33, and Duchesne, who had 30. So you can see why they were one of the best goal scoring teams in the entire NHL. 3 players had 70 plus points. 30 players had 30 plus goals. Like, definitely. Even though none of them hit like 90 plus points or 40 plus goals, they had a whole bunch of really solid contributions on the offensive side last year. In the regular season, Dallas did. So very good stuff there. Like we said, they made the playoffs as the second team in the Central, got Colorado in round 1. It was a very solid back and forth series that would eventually wind up seeing the Dallas Stars come on top in 7 games and beat the Colorado Avalanche. They would then take down the President's Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets in 6 games before, after winning game 1, losing 4 straight and losing the Western Conference Final again to the Edmonton Oilers. 3rd straight Western Conference Final in a row that the Dallas Stars have lost. So very interesting note there, but definitely some bad stuff there from the Dallas Stars, as they weren't able to make it to the Cup final, but still a pretty solid playoff run. Brandon led the team with 22 points in the postseason, followed by Harley, who had 14. Brandon led the team with 9 goals in the postseason, followed by Hintz, who had 6. So obviously, in-season acquisition Rantanen was beautiful for the Dallas Stars. So very interesting note there. And Harley actually had a pretty solid playoffs as well. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to the team's offseason additions and subtractions. Not a long list here. They added Radek Faksa from St. Louis, Nathan Bastian from New Jersey in free agency, added Kolyachonok from Pittsburgh in a trade, as well as a 2025 fourth their own and 2026 third rounder Seattle's in trades. They also lost Mikael Granlund to Anaheim, Mason Marchment in a trade to Seattle, Evgeny Dodonov to New Jersey, Matej Blumel to Boston, Brendan Smith on a PTO to Columbus. They lost Matt Dumba to Pittsburgh in a trade, Cody Ceci to Los Angeles, Magnus Hellberg to UFA status, and a 2028 second round pick their own. So very interesting note there. So I feel like this team, goaltending wise, maybe a little bit lost of depth because he didn't re-sign Hellberg, but I definitely think they have some internal options that will definitely off-weigh the loss of Hellberg. Defensively, they lose Demba, who was a decent third-pair defenseman last year for them, Cody Ceci, who was a solid top-4 defenseman last year after being acquired in season, and Brendan Smith, who was able to provide some depth for them. And they only have Vlasislav Kolyachonok, so definitely, I think they would have liked to add a top-4 defenseman this offseason, but they didn't. So like defensive-wise, definitely got a little bit worse, even though Dumba's contract wasn't overly great. Although I do think Kolyachonok could be a decent third-pair defenseman. They also added Bastian and Fox on the forward group. They lose Mikael Granlund, who was a really solid in-season acquisition, Mason Marchment, who I think had 50 or 60 points last year. They also lost Evgeny Dodonov, who's a solid bottom 6 forward. They lost Matej Blumel, who's some added forward depth. So all in all, very interesting note there. Like Fox and Bastian can be really solid fourth liners, but like Granlund was a solid top 9 forward, Marchment was a solid top 9 forward. Like one of those two can play with Dodonov, but I don't think they can replace all the losses that they had in the forward group. So definitely, the forward group looks a little bit worse. So very interesting offseason additions and subtractions from the Stars. And the Stars made 2 trades as well this offseason. They acquired Vlasislav Kolyachonok from Pittsburgh for Matt Dumba and their own 2028 second round pick. And they acquired a 2025 fourth rounder and 2026 second rounder from Seattle for Mason Marchment. So some very interesting trades. Both basically cap dumps for the Dallas Stars. Next, going over to their top 3 draft picks from the 2025 draft. So they had 3 picks. Their first pick in the 2025 draft was 94th overall in the 3rd round. And they took right winger Schmidt In the 4th round, 126 overall was their second pick, and they took left winger Gorzinski. And in the 5th round, 146 overall, they took center prospect Yoki. So very interesting note there. So they definitely identified forward help as the sort of targets in the draft. They didn't have a whole bunch of like top end draft capital, but they were able to make some solid pickups. Like I think Schmidt, Gorzinski, and Yoki will all eventually be able to challenge for bottom 6 roles. I think Schmidt might have a little bit of a higher ceiling than the other two, but still very interesting note there. Those are the top 3 picks for the Dallas Stars in the 2025 draft. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to the 5 things they said in the offseason preview video this team should do in the offseason to get better and improve for this upcoming season. So the first thing it says this team should do was to add a top 4 right shot defenseman. They didn't do that. They lost Dumba, who was a right shot defenseman. They lost Ceci, who was a right shot defenseman. They didn't add anyone on the right side. Even on the left side, they only added Vladislav Kolyachonok. So they didn't add a top 4 right shot defenseman. I was hoping they would go after Anderson or Carlson or someone who could definitely improve that defensive core. They didn't do that, so that's an X on my checklist. The second thing that this team should do is to add some bottom 6 help. They definitely did that. I don't know if it'll definitely offset the losses that they had, but they add Faxa, they add Bastian, who I think will be very, very solid 4th line forward. So they definitely add some bottom 6 help. That's a check off my checklist. The third thing that this team should do is to move Marchment, Bushkin, or Dumba this year to try and free up some cap space. Now, Bushkin is still on the team. However, Marchment and Dumba were dealt, as we just talked about. Those are 2 trades that the Stars made this offseason. Dumba's now in Pittsburgh. Marchment's now in Seattle. Both are trying to finalize their deals. Marchment have $4.5 million cap hit. Dumba just over $3.5 million. So it made sense to move them. And like I said in my offseason preview video, I thought moving them would be a top priority for them. It was. So because they were able to move 2 of the 3 that I mentioned, that's a check off my checklist. The 4th thing it says you should do is to try and extend 2 of at least Duchesne, Ben, and Granlund, who all entered the offseason as pending UFAs. And they did that. They did lose Granlund to UFA status, and with his contract ask, I can see why they did that, but they were able to sign Ben to a new 1-year, $1 million deal, and Duchesne got a long-term extension of 4 years. So very good stuff there. But the Stars did keep 2 of those 3 big UFAs, and that was a big boost there for the Dallas Stars. And the 5th thing it says you should do is to find a new head coach. They fired Peter DeBoer when I was doing my off-season preview video, so I said they needed to hire a new coach, and they did wind up hiring a new coach in Gulutzan. I think Gulutzan is going to be a really solid coach for the Dallas Stars. He was a really solid power play guy in Edmonton. I think he works well with the Dallas Stars, so it's not a bad coaching hire. So very interesting out there. But those are all the off-season things I said this team should do in the off-season to get better. And I feel like they did a lot of the things except for my top priority, which was trying to add a top 4 right shot defenseman, which they didn't do. So very interesting out there. Next, going over to my projected lineup for the Dallas Stars for 2025-2026 season. So at this current point in time, my projected lineup for the Stars is as follows. On the top unit, I have Robertson with Hintz and Rantanen. On the second unit, I have Sagan with Duchesne and Johnston. Third unit is Steele with Ben and Bork. And the 4th unit is Bach with Faxa and Stranges. I have Harley and Heiskanen being top pair, Lindahl, Kolyachonok being the second pair, Bichel and Bushkin being the third spare, Andre the starter, the Smith the backup, and Petrovic, Lundqvist, and Blackwell the 3 spares. And that'll be a really decent roster there for the Dallas Stars. Like, forward group wise, they are deep. Defensive wise, like, it's a little bit rough. It's not one of the best defenses in the entire NHL, but it's an alright defense. And they got one of the best goalie tandems in Andre and the Smith. So very interesting note there, but that's a pretty solid lineup there for Dallas Stars for this upcoming season. Next, going over to my predictions for Dallas Stars for the 2025-2026 season. I have them basically being right around where they finished last year. I still have them finishing second in the Central Division. My current projected record for them is a 49-27-6 record for 104 points. I think that's, what, 2 points lower than last year. So I feel like this Dallas Stars team is really poised to be right around where they were last year. I know they lost a little bit of depth on the blue line. Maybe don't have as strong of a forward group as they did last year, but I think this team's still really good. They're still going to hit the triple-digit mark, still going to be a top 3 team in the Central. Wouldn't be surprised if they were once again second in the Central Division. So I feel like this team is still in a really good position, and I feel like a second in the Central Division is pretty solid for the Dallas Stars. That's my current projections for the Dallas Stars for the 25-26 season. And lastly, going over to my off-season grades. So I feel like this team, how I did this off-season, definitely not one of the best off-seasons we've seen. Lost a little bit of depth from the defensive core. Definitely lost a little bit of depth from the forward group. Only add some lower-end players such as Kolyachonok, Bastian, and Faxa. So all in all, I'm going to give them a C- rating. I think they definitely had a below-average off-season that their team was supposed to be going for. Didn't add any major players, just some depth to sort of work around the edges. And once again, I think Dallas is still a good team, and I think they're still going to be a top 15 in the Central, but I don't think they had a great offseason, which is why I think the C- is warranted for the sort of offseason this team had. So definitely, that's my thoughts on Dallas Stars. That's my thoughts on the Nashville Predators. I left you guys' thoughts. Do you think that Dallas is poised to be right around where they were last year? Do you think Nashville's poised to take a step forward but still miss the playoffs? And I left you guys' thoughts if you agree with that. If you disagree with that, what were your thoughts on the offseason? And what are your thoughts about the 25-26 season for these two teams? Definitely your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk about today. Remember to like this video and feel free to subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for more videos coming out in the very near future. I also have a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link to that in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.